I'd like to thank our three guests and panelists. Of course, we know exactly what you're talking about because you are experts who are with us today and from different fields. But it's music to our ears, indeed. Jerry talked about access to justice, and he talked about the legal aspects of social pediatrics. And of course, social justice was one of our biggest obstacles from the outset. And it created a lot of confrontations between the approach that we were developing, which was targeted on the strength of families and children, and our justice system and youth protection system, which is a completely different way of doing things. And Jerry described it very well and explained how aggressive that system was, how reactive it was, and how the justice system often blames the victims, and often we were confronted with the court. And until Hélène came and talked about the right of children and created that children or child circle, which gave a much more personalized access to justice. But prior to that, when we presented ourselves at court, we had problems. But after that, we were able to at least explain the strengths of the family to the judge, despite the difficulties, and to explain the will that they had to move forward using our community-based and relationship-based system. And that certainly changed the power relationships that we had with the justice system. It allowed us to create links with the various youth centers as well as with youth protection, and often have a consensus before we go to court. Reach a consensus before we go to court, and that is how we changed the whole practice of social pediatrics. And I think that with this approach, we provided a different access to families where justice had respect for families and where we could influence the system, but by doing it very simply with the child circles and with the rights that are violated, to find a solution together. Even before we came up to the judge. For us, therefore, this was a very important gain in social pediatrics. I don't want to take too much time here, so let me move on to Melanie. Melanie certainly gave us a lot to think about. And she talked about our research chairs. And they have to, of course, measure all the different practices that we undertake, all the tools that exist and that we create to evaluate the child intuitively. We look at the violated rights of children, and we therefore prioritize their needs, and we don't necessarily have a program that we impose on each child that is predefined. It is actually defined around the child itself, and that makes it very difficult for researchers. And now we have researchers who have associated themselves with our work and who see how we function and who allow us, therefore, to evaluate the impact of our work in a more precise way and allow us to filter the tools that we use. So the notions in pediatrics were that we know what works, it's self-evident, and something will work, and we'll just keep trying and something will function. Older children came to see us and said, well, you remember on this day, at that point when you said this, it changed my life. Well, we don't know that at the outset, so we put in all we can, and we have a lot of action plans, yes, but research should help us to target better and to find the best tools so that we can save time and make sure that more children have access to our services. And serve and return, yes, that's a wonderful idea. We've been saying it a very long time, and I've been talking about it a lot because the more we find and figure out the signs that the children are sending us, then the more efficient we can be. When I say to someone, you know, I love the way you looked at this child. I love the way you got up to help him because I thought he was going to fall. Well, this is very important. And actually, parents say to me often, well, this is the first time somebody's treated me as a real person. So we never compliment and encourage and foster the parents so that we can really decode what's happening with the child and better help them. And then Mitch, of course, started to talk to us about the complex intervention models, which are very close to what we're actually doing. And I was talking to Mitch. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and previously we had a lot in common in our practice. And he, too, wants to see children with our relationship-based approach, and we have a facility in decoding what is happening and following what the child is dictating to us when we're evaluating the child. I had a very extraordinary family in the clinic, children who were 5 and 6 years old and who were reluctant to participate at first, and they had a very unbearable mother, actually, who had gone through a lot of violence. They had gone through, they had used drugs, they had dropped out of school. We have the same clients, obviously. But this mother took herself in hand, and what we did, I told her, you're so extraordinary after everything you've gone through, and now how can I help you? And she said, just making these positive remarks makes me go further and helps me get the support I need. And so we have provided now support for her children. But this is very precious. Nobody had ever congratulated her for all the work that she did with herself and the strength that she demonstrated to go back to school and to take herself in hand. And all she needed was someone to actually give her that positive feedback. And that role is very important. And we really need to decode what's happening to be able to do that. When the kid raises his head and we see the attention of the child when we're talking to the mother and he interrupts his game to listen, then we know that we're on the right path and that we should continue following this path. And I had someone with me yesterday, and I was evaluating a family, and I had a questionnaire. An atypical, abnormal one. Of course, we always have one of those because we don't follow necessarily the protocol. You know, we don't start with the heart and the lungs. We let our questionnaire be guided by the reaction of the child and the family. And so we therefore have a lot in common. Thank you very much for comforting us and letting us know that we're on the right path. And now I think it's up to our room here.